The ocean is a powerful force, life-giving yet merciless. It stretches beyond the horizon, a vast expanse that has both inspired and terrified humankind for centuries. Its beauty is undeniable, but so is its danger. Imagine, you're alone, the ship that was your world shrinking to a dot on the horizon. The last connection to civilization fades, leaving you stranded on the edge of the unknown. The familiar sounds of crew and timber are gone, replaced by the roar of surf and the cry of a distant seabird. The wind carries only the scent of salt and the promise of isolation. This isn't a nightmare, it's your new reality. Every sense is heightened, every moment feels uncertain. Stranded, you face the immense power of nature, your heart pounding with fear. The ocean's relentless rhythm is a reminder of how small you truly are. Behind you, a dark, unknown jungle. Its shadows conceal both danger and the hope of shelter, but every step inland is a gamble. Before you, the endless, unforgiving sea. Its waves seem to whisper of lost ships and forgotten souls. The sun beats down, the salty air stings, and you are utterly alone. Hunger and thirst creep in, and the elements show no mercy. Silence presses in, amplifying every doubt and fear. The mind becomes its own battleground, wrestling with hope and despair. Survival is no longer an idea, it's a demand. Every action, every decision is a matter of life or death. This was the world Alexander Selkirk was thrown into, a place where every day was a test of endurance and ingenuity. His story is a raw testament to the will to live, a battle against the elements and the mind. Storms battered his resolve, but he refused to surrender. Left with only the clothes on his back and a few tools, he had no map, no guide, no promise of rescue. Every possession became precious, every resource a lifeline. Each sunrise brought new challenges. Each day demanded courage and resourcefulness. Each sunset, a small victory. Surviving another day meant hope was still alive. We'll walk in his footsteps, from the moment his ship vanished to the day he saw another human face. We'll discover the choices he made, the fears he conquered, and the strength he found within. This is the real story of Robinson Crusoe, a tale of grit, determination, and the unbreakable spirit of a survivor. It's a journey into the heart of what it means to endure. The ocean took everything, but it could not take his will to endure. Against all odds, he found a way to survive, and in doing so, became a legend. Alexander Selkirk was born in Scotland in 1676, a stubborn, quick-tempered rebel. The quiet life never suited him, so he took to the sea, joining a privateering expedition, legal piracy, high risk, high reward. On the Cinque Ports, Selkirk's confrontational nature clashed with Captain Thomas Stradling. Selkirk, an experienced navigator, loudly warned the ship was riddled with woodworm and unsafe. His open defiance made him an outcast and a threat to the captain's authority. The ship became a powder keg, the crew caught between two stubborn men. Selkirk believed staying aboard was a death sentence. Stradling saw him as a mutinous troublemaker. Selkirk's rebellious spirit pushed him to the brink. He'd rather risk isolation than drown at sea. His choice would lead to a struggle for survival beyond anything he could imagine. The conflict between Selkirk and Stradling set the stage for one of history's greatest tales of endurance. His rebellious nature had led him to the edge of the world. The breaking point came off the coast of Masa Tierra, a remote island in the Juan Fernandez archipelago. Selkirk refused to sail further on the rotting ship, demanding to be left ashore. The captain, eager to be rid of him, agreed. Selkirk was rowed to the island with only a musket, a hatchet, a knife, a pot, bedding, and a Bible. As the boat pulled away, regret hit Selkirk hard. He pleaded to return, but the crew ignored him. The Cinque Ports sailed off, leaving him utterly alone. The silence was deafening. The island, once a refuge, became a prison. He had made a rash decision in anger, and now he had to survive the consequences. As the sun set, the true horror of his situation sank in. Alone, abandoned, he faced a battle for his life. The first night marked the beginning of his ordeal. Selkirk's fate was sealed. The first days were a blur of terror and desperation. Every moment was haunted by the fear that he might not survive, and the unfamiliar landscape offered little comfort. The island, once a paradise in his imagination, now felt monstrous and alive, its beauty masking countless dangers. The thick forests and jagged cliffs seemed to close in around him, making escape feel impossible. At night, sea lions roared ashore, their cries echoing through the darkness, keeping him awake and afraid. The sounds of the wild were constant reminders that he was not alone, and that the island belonged to other creatures. Hunger forced him to scavenge. He picked shellfish and spiny lobsters from the rocks, his hands raw from prying them loose. Each meal was a small victory, but never enough to truly satisfy his gnawing hunger. But it wasn't enough. He had to venture inland, facing his fear of the dense jungle. The shadows beneath the trees hid unknown threats, but also the promise of new resources and hope for survival. Making fire became a critical challenge. He learned to create it by friction, blistering his hands until he finally coaxed a flame. The process was grueling, and failure meant cold nights and uncooked food. That first fire was more than warmth, it was hope. The flickering light pushed back the darkness, giving him a sense of control and a reason to keep going. With fire, he could cook, keep insects at bay, and find comfort in the darkness. The simple act of boiling water or roasting shellfish became a ritual of survival. Soon, he discovered feral goats left by earlier sailors. Their presence meant a new source of food, but also a new challenge: how to catch them. He shot a few for meat, but knew his gunpowder wouldn't last. Each shot was precious, and he rationed his ammunition with growing anxiety. He had to adapt, finding new ways to hunt and survive. He fashioned traps from branches and vines, learning to read the land and the habits of the animals around him. Each small victory, fire, food, shelter, was a step away from panic and toward survival. Every day brought new lessons, and every night he grew a little stronger. The island was hostile, but Selkirk was learning to fight back. He was no longer just a castaway, he was becoming a survivor, determined to endure whatever the island threw at him. The first hurdles were cleared, but the long road was just beginning. The challenges ahead were unknown, but he faced them with growing resolve. Every day was a test of will and ingenuity. He learned to use the island's resources, turning obstacles into opportunities for survival. Selkirk's struggle for survival had truly begun, and with each passing day, he grew more determined to master the wild world around him. Weeks passed, and Selkirk realized he couldn't live on the beach forever. The endless waves and shifting sands offered no real safety, and the nights grew colder as the winds swept in from the sea. He built 2 huts inland, one for sleeping, one for cooking and work. Each was carefully constructed from branches, leaves, and whatever materials he could scavenge, providing a sense of order in the wild chaos. With shelter, his days gained structure, scanning the horizon for ships, gathering firewood, foraging for food. Every morning brought a new set of tasks, and every evening, a quiet hope for rescue. He learned to identify edible plants and became an expert forager. The island's bounty slowly revealed itself, from wild greens to hidden roots and berries. Crafting tools from stone and bone, he adapted as his supplies dwindled. Each new tool was a small victory, a testament to his growing resourcefulness. As gunpowder ran out, he learned to chase down goats on foot, becoming incredibly fit and agile. The hunt was exhausting, but it sharpened his senses and kept him alive. The island became his larder, and he its sole keeper. Every meal was hard-earned, and every day brought new challenges to overcome. Injury was a constant threat. A single misstep could be fatal. The rugged terrain demanded his full attention, and he learned to move with care. Once, he fell from a cliff while hunting, a stark reminder of his fragility. The pain lingered for days, and he nursed his wounds alone, more cautious than ever. He learned to be cautious, measuring every risk. Each decision could mean the difference between life and death. Survival was about more than strength. It was about respect for the dangers around him. The island demanded humility, patience, and constant vigilance. Routine anchored his mind, giving purpose to each day. Chores became rituals, and rituals became a lifeline against loneliness. Selkirk was no longer just surviving, he was adapting, becoming part of the island. The wild no longer felt foreign, it was becoming familiar, even comforting. The wild was his adversary, but also his teacher. Every hardship brought a lesson, and every lesson made him stronger. He forged a new life, one hard-won lesson at a time. Each day, he shaped his world with his own hands, determined to endure. The island was no longer just a prison, it was home. In the heart of the wilderness, Selkirk discovered not only survival, but a sense of belonging he never expected to find. Hunting became the center of Selkirk's world. At first his musket gave him an edge, but every shot depleted his precious ammunition. When the powder ran out, he relied on speed and stamina. chasing goats until they collapsed from exhaustion. He learned the island's trails, becoming a true predator. He fashioned fishing hooks from nails, catching fish in streams and coastal waters. Selkirk even domesticated wildcats to control the rats that threatened his food stores. Over time, he tamed young goats, keeping them for milk and meat. He knew every path, every stream, every sign of weather. The island was no longer a mystery, he was its master. Selkirk had transformed from a stranded sailor into a wild man, king of his solitary kingdom. He was no longer just surviving, he was thriving. The hunt was his daily test, his connection to the wild. Selkirk had become part of the island's story. Selkirk's greatest battle was against loneliness. Months turned to years with only his own voice for company. The silence gnawed at his sanity, his mind conjuring voices and phantom ships. False hope brought crushing despair, and the fear of dying forgotten haunted him. To fight madness, he clung to routine and read his Bible aloud, finding comfort in its words. Faith and hope became his lifelines, transforming the island from a prison to a place of spiritual refuge. He found a strange peace in solitude, a contentment unknown in the world of men. Though still lonely, he was no longer entirely alone. He had his faith and hope for rescue. The mine's jungle was as wild as the island, but Selkirk learned to survive it. The night was a monster, a living, breathing beast that seemed to rise from the depths of the ocean itself, hungry for destruction. It roared with the fury of 1,000 lions, each wave a deafening bellow that shook the very core of our ship. Waves as tall as mountains crashed down upon our ship, the sea serpent, their white crests glowing eerily in the flashes of lightning. The timbers groaned and shuddered beneath the relentless assault. Rain lashed down in sheets so thick it stung my skin, and the wind howled in my ears, a chilling scream that promised only doom. I clung to the mast, my body soaked and trembling as lightning illuminated the terror on my crewmates' faces, their eyes wide with fear and disbelief. We were experienced sailors, men who had braved tempests and gales before. But this storm was different, a primal force, an ancient anger unleashed from the heart of the sea itself. The ship tilted violently, pitching and rolling as if it were a toy in the hands of a giant, sending barrels and ropes sliding across the deck in chaos. Men screamed, their voices swallowed by the storm's roar, their cries for help lost in the endless thunder and crashing waves. We were losing the fight, the ocean was claiming its prize, and our ship was being torn apart plank by plank. Then came the final gut-wrenching crack. The mainmast splintered with a sound like thunder, the ship shuddered violently, and I was thrown into the icy water, helpless against the force. The cold was immediate and paralyzing, stealing the air from my lungs and numbing my limbs as I struggled to keep my head above water. Debris and desperate cries filled the water as I fought to stay afloat, but the current dragged me away from the sinking vessel, separating me from my friends and any hope of rescue. My last memory was the ship's lantern disappearing beneath the waves, a tiny spark extinguished by darkness, swallowed by the endless black sea. I was alone, adrift in a violent, uncaring sea, tossed about like driftwood, the storm showing no mercy. My strength faded, my limbs grew heavy, and my mind started to drift, memories and fear blurring together as exhaustion took hold. I surrendered to the pull of the depths, the world going silent as the black water closed over my head, the storm's fury fading into nothingness. The storm raged on above, relentless and wild, but for me, there was only darkness and the cold embrace of the sea. My first sensation was the sun, warm on my face, its rays gentle but insistent, coaxing me back to consciousness. For a moment, I almost believed I was waking from a dream, but the taste of salt and the ache in my limbs told a different story. I felt alien after the ocean's icy grip, my body shuddering as I dragged myself from the relentless surf, every muscle trembling with exhaustion and cold. I coughed up salt water, my throat raw, my body aching as I pushed myself up into the soft white sand. Each breath was a struggle, but I was alive. Before me stretched a perfect crescent of beach, kissed by turquoise water that sparkled in the early light, impossibly beautiful and utterly foreign. The sea was calm now, a cruel contrast to the nightmare that brought me here. Its gentle waves seemed to mock the chaos I'd survived. I was alive, but utterly alone. The realization settled over me like a heavy blanket, both comforting and terrifying. I staggered to my feet, searching the coastline for any sign of the sea serpent or my crewmates. Nothing but endless sand and silence greeted me. On one side, endless ocean. On the other, a wall of dense, intimidating jungle. Both seemed equally impenetrable, both hiding secrets I could only imagine. Strange bird calls echoed from within, hinting at creatures unknown. The sounds were haunting, a reminder that I was a stranger in this place. The air was thick and humid, heavy with the scent of damp earth and rotting vegetation. Every breath felt like inhaling the jungle itself. Giant, colorful butterflies flitted past, their wings flashing in the sunlight, and on the sand, I saw large reptilian footprints, evidence of life, but not the kind I hoped for. Fear pierced through my exhaustion. What kind of animals lived here? Every shadow in the undergrowth seemed to move with hidden intent. The island was beautiful, but beneath the surface I sensed danger lurking, as if the land itself was watching me, waiting to see what I would do next. I was a castaway, marooned on an uncharted island with no food, water, or shelter. The enormity of my situation pressed in from all sides. The hope I felt on waking was quickly choked by despair, replaced by a gnawing fear of what the coming days would bring. I screamed the names of my crewmates into the emptiness, my voice echoing off the water and trees, desperate for any reply. Only the waves and haunting jungle calls replied, a chorus of indifference from a world that didn't care if I survived. The silence that followed was the most terrifying sound of all, a reminder that I was truly, completely alone in this new world. For days, I wandered the endless shoreline, each step heavier than the last, my feet dragging through the sand as exhaustion set in. My spirit was as broken as my body, weighed down by hunger, thirst, and the crushing loneliness that seemed to stretch on forever. I survived on raw shellfish pried from rocks and trickles of fresh water found deep in the jungle, growing weaker and lonelier with each passing hour. Then, on the fourth day, hope appeared. A section of the ship's hull wedged on the rocks, crates and planks tangled among the wreckage, battered but intact. My heart pounded as I scrambled over the slippery rocks, dragging the heavy crates onto the sand, adrenaline surging through my veins. My hands raw and trembling, I pried open the first crate, inside tools, a hammer, saw, nails, and an axe. In that moment, they felt more precious than gold or jewels. The second crate revealed a tinderbox, a coil of rope, and a torn canvas sail. Simple things, but to me, they were the difference between despair and possibility. My mind raced with possibilities, shelter from the storms, fire for warmth and protection, tools for building and defense. Suddenly the future didn't seem so impossible. These were the keys to my survival, a tangible link to the world I'd lost and a reminder that I was not entirely alone. Holding the axe, I felt a flicker of my old self return, a sense of purpose, a stubborn will to endure. I was not just a victim, I was a survivor, ready to fight for my life. Among the wreckage, I found a sailor's chest, my own. Inside were my journal, a spyglass, and a tin of biscuits, each item a piece of my former life. The biscuits were hard as rock, but to me they tasted like salvation, each bite a reminder that I could still endure. Finding these items was more than luck. It was a sign, a message that I was meant to fight, to carve out a new existence from the ruins. The sea had taken everything from me, but in its own way, it had also given me the means to survive, to hope, and to rebuild. That day, as the sun set over the horizon, I made a promise to myself. I would not surrender. I would survive, no matter what the island threw at me. The island would not claim me without a fight. I would use every ounce of strength, every scrap of hope, to endure. With the first light of dawn, I was ready to begin again, stronger, wiser, and more determined than ever before. My first priority was shelter. With axe in hand, I ventured into the jungle, choosing a spot between two rock formations for protection. I chopped down young trees, each one a victory, and built a crude lean-to with the canvas sail for a roof. Next came fire, the true test. I gathered dry leaves and twigs, striking flint against steel until a tiny spark caught. I coaxed it to life, and soon a small flame flickered, pushing back the darkness. The warmth and light brought a profound sense of achievement. I cooked shellfish over the fire. The taste of hot food was a revelation. That night, for the first time, I slept with a sense of security. The fire crackled nearby, its light dancing on the rock walls. I listened to the jungle's sounds, fear still present but no longer overwhelming. I had tamed a small piece of this wild island. Each step, shelter, fire, food, was a victory. I was learning to fight back. The island was my enemy, but I was determined to survive. I would not let despair win. Every day I grew stronger. I was no longer just a castaway, I was a survivor. My battle had only just begun. Days settled into a rhythm, dictated by the sun and my needs. Each morning I checked my surroundings, always alert for danger. I became a hunter out of necessity, fashioning a spear and learning to track and wait. My first hunt brought fresh meat, but the island's dangers were ever present. Giant lizards, torrential rains, and the constant threat of isolation. Small victories, finding fruit, weaving rope, catching fish, kept hope alive. I started a journal, documenting my days and fears to keep loneliness at bay. Yet in the darkest moments, the island felt like a prison, and I its only inmate. Survival was a daily battle, but I refused to give in. My greatest battle was not with the jungle, but within my own mind. Loneliness was a slow poison. Silence became my norm. I fought back by building a sturdy cabin, a project that gave me purpose and focus. The island, once my enemy, became my home as I learned its secrets and rhythms. Moments of peace came from watching animals and the stars, grounding me in the natural world. Yet despair always returned. Memories of lost crewmates and stormy nights haunted me. The war between hope and despair was constant, but I kept fighting. Some days hope won, other days despair, but I never gave up. 1,583 days. I marked each one on a wooden post. My appearance changed. Wild hair, tan skin, clothes of animal skins. I mastered fire, foraging, and even domesticated a goat. The island became my kingdom, but at a cost. I was no longer the man I once was. Memories of my old life faded, replaced by the rhythms of survival. Yet, every morning I tended a signal fire on the highest cliff, a beacon of hope. Most days I expected nothing, but I never let it go out. It was the last piece of my old self I refused to surrender. It happened on a clear afternoon. I saw a sail on the horizon. At first I thought it a mirage, but it was real, a ship. After years of waiting, rescue had come. I raced to the signal fire, sending up thick smoke, waving and shouting with all my strength. The ship seemed to linger forever, but finally it drew closer. Relief overwhelmed me. I collapsed, sobbing as the nightmare ended. When the rescue boat reached shore, the sailors stared at me, a wild man clad in goatskins, eyes full of ancient wisdom. My voice was rough, my words few, but they gave me water and bread. The taste of bread was overwhelming. As they led me to the boat, I looked back at the island, my prison, my teacher. I was leaving it behind, but a part of it would remain with me forever. My ordeal was over, but I was forever changed. I had survived the impossible. The world awaited, but I would never forget the island. I was free at last. Returning to civilization was as jarring as being shipwrecked. People stared, listening to my story with awe and disbelief. My tale of survival spread through London, capturing imaginations. Writer Daniel Defoe was captivated, interviewing me for hours. He transformed my ordeal into the story of Robinson Crusoe. My struggles and triumphs became legend, inspiring generations. My journey taught me true strength is forged in adversity. Survival is the quiet refusal to give up, the will to endure. My story stands as a testament to the human spirit. If you were stripped of everything, alone in the wild, would you survive?